Rain battered the half-collapsed hotel roof, drumming on warped tin and broken satellite dishes. The air smelled of wet plaster, cordite from a fight 2 streets away, and the briny pull of the Adriatic. Captain Elena Markova lay prone behind a chipped parapet, cheek welded to the stock of the MK-13, crosshairs steady on a blown-out window across the courtyard. Night vision cast everything in green ghosts. Inside that room, the high-value broker in a dark jacket, gesturing wildly at someone off-frame. Then a small head bobbed into view. A boy, 8, maybe 9, bare feet on shattered glass. He clung to the man's sleeve. Elena's gloved trigger hand tightened until her knuckles paled. RO for Operation Lion Ferry. PID, no civilian casualties. Lethal force only if the hostage convoy was threatened. This wasn't the shot they'd planned. This was insurance, desperation, a moment commanders like to call flexibility, and snipers called, "You'll carry this for years." Her earpiece crackled, German-accented English cutting through the rain. "Iron Wolf sniper, you're on." She exhaled, micro-slow, trying to separate the man's torso from the thin arm clinging to him. No angle, no clean break. If she didn't fire, the SEALs moving on the stairwell would walk into an alert target. If she did, she might kill a child. She began to take up the slack on the trigger. Hard cut, 48 hours earlier. The C-27J touched down on the rain-streaked runway of Naval Air Station Sigonella just after 1800 Z, tires hissing on wet tarmac. Captain Elena Markova sat upright in the web seat, helmet in her lap, letting the subtle vibration of the slowing engines bleed out through her shoulders. Sicily was supposed to be sun and dust. Instead, low clouds pressed over the base, muting everything to gray. She descended the ramp with her kit slung high, rifle case in her right hand. Ahead, under the awning, 3 men waited, multicam, relaxed posture, eyes that had seen too many rehearsals. The one in front, tall with close-cropped brown hair and the self-assured stillness of command, stepped forward. "Captain Markova?" His English carried a faint Bavarian edge. "Commander Lucas Bauer, welcome to Sigonella." She snapped a crisp nod. "Sir." Behind him, Chief Petty Officer Eric Dahl, broad-shouldered and blonde like he'd been carved out of northern pine, glanced at the hard case in her hand, as if weighing it. The third, Matteo Leone, lean with dark curls, smirked in a way that wasn't cruel, but wasn't respectful either. "Appreciate you coming," Bauer said. "You're listed as support sniper for Lion Ferry." Support. There it was, the little word that kept women at the edge of the blast radius. "I saw the tasking," she answered, keeping her tone even. "Urban overwatch, eyes on HVT, engage on authority." Dahl made a low sound. "Assuming we give the authority." Elena shifted her grip on the case. She could have reminded him she outranked him. NATO captain, not a junior tag-along. She could have laid out her cadre cert, the Baltic sniper course, the multinational exercise where she'd outshot 2 of their own. All of that would sound like pleading. Instead, she said, "Then let's make sure I meet your standard, Chief." That earned her a quick look from Bauer, approval, or at least interest. "We're due for a weapons check and then the mission brief," he said. "Your weapon needs to go through our armorer. Temporary lock until we finish the ROE brief." Understood. The walk to the operations building cut through the base's odd mix of Italian and American infrastructure. Low stucco, high chain link, the smell of jet fuel and espresso from a distant canteen. As they moved, Elena watched how the men walked together, unthinking synchrony, a tribe carved by deployments. She was an insertion into a closed loop. Inside, the armory tech, a Spanish petty officer attached for the rotation, took her Mk-13 case and logged it with mildly raised brows. "Long way from Vilnius, Captain," he said in accented English. "Long way from Madrid, too," she replied, and he grinned. Small bridges mattered. Bauer led them upstairs to a briefing room, whiteboard, rolling map display of the Adriatic, a projector already showing the coastline of Varan Ewo. On the side table, helmets, headsets, mission folders. She noted there were exactly the number of seats for his men plus him, no spare. Leon dragged an extra chair from the hall without being asked and set it near the back for her. A small gesture, an implied rank. Observer. Dahl dropped into his seat and started flipping through the mission packet. "So, Captain," he said without looking up, "back home you just sit on rooftops and tell people ranges?" Leon smirked, eyes flicking to her, waiting to see if she'd bite. Elena set her notebook down. "Back home I take shots that keep people like you from bleeding out in stairwells." The room went quiet for half a heartbeat. Then Bauer chuckled, short and approving. "Fair enough. Chief, she's sitting in, full brief." Dahl's brows knit. "Sir, she hasn't shot to our qual." "She will," Bauer cut in. "After the brief. If she passes, she's in the stack, figuratively. If she doesn't, she can watch our comms from here. That work for you, Captain?" It was exactly what she'd hoped for. Performance first, judgment after. "Yes, sir." But inside, the dilemma lingered like pressure behind the eyes. If she failed their range, unfamiliar gunner's mat, foreign wind, eyes on her, she'd be relegated to a screen in a safe room, her calls easy to ignore. If she overperformed, she'd confirm every suspicion that she was here to prove a point about integration. The projector flicked to a satellite image of Varan, a knot of terracotta roofs and narrow streets spilling to a gray sea. Bauer stood beside it, arms folded. "Our HVT is operating out of this hotel shell and 2 adjacent apartments. ROE will be tight. Political eyes on. We will need a shooter who can make decisions without crying for permission." His gaze settled on her at the last sentence. Deliberate. So, they thought she was just support. But the commander wanted more. And if she wanted them to listen when the streets of Varan turned ugly tonight, on their range, she would have to show them why the Baltic schools had named her Iron Wolf. The projector hummed, casting the coastal town in pale light, Varan in white block letters at the top, the Adriatic a dull slab to the right. Rain tapped against the window of the briefing room, soft but insistent, like time running out. CM Bauer stood beside the screen with the remote. "This," he said, "is our playground, whether we like it or not." Elena leaned forward, notebook open, pen uncapped. She took in the streets, tight medieval grids, service alleys, rooftop lines with almost no continuous sight line longer than 220 meters. Not a sniper's dream. A city that punished distance. Bauer clicked. A zoomed image of a 4-story structure appeared. Stucco cracked, roofline partially collapsed, an improvised satellite dish on top. Primary strong point the target has used 3 times in the last week. Locals think it's just a derelict hotel. 2 flanking apartments here and here, he said, circling with the laser. He rotates. So will we. Target? Dahl asked. Businesslike now. Name he's using is Marek Sova, Bauer said. Czech-born, naturalized elsewhere, runs a facilitation line for high-value hostages. Right now he is in possession of, or negotiating on, an EU field officer taken last month. Brussels wants him alive if possible, dead if necessary, but under no circumstances do they want children killed on video. His mouth tightened at that last part. Elena's attention sharpened. Children? She asked. Bauer nodded once. He uses local families as physical clutter. We've seen him step out of cars in crowded courtyards, always with at least one minor within arm's reach. Could be relatives, could be coerced. Intel can't confirm. Leon muttered, human sandbags, under his breath. That's not what we're going to call it, Bauer replied, eyes flicking to him. Because the ambassadors are watching. This op has political overwatch from Rome and Brussels. Comms will be monitored. The slide changed again, this time to a block of text with bolded lines. Bauer didn't make them read it. He spoke it. ROE for Lion Ferry as of 0715Z. Positive identification on Marek Sova. No engagement if non-combatants are within 2 meters, unless assault element is in extremis. Non-lethal or delayed shots are preferred when feasible. We will record helmet cam, sniper video, and drone ISR for post-op review. Dahl exhaled with audible annoyance. 2 meters in this rat's nest? That's no engagement. It's what we have, Bauer said. We're guests. Elena flipped to a clean page. 2 meters was an eternity at close quarters. A man holding a child to his torso could invalidate every shot she wanted to take. And because ROE said, unless assault element in extremis, the burden of judgment would fall on whoever saw the danger first. ISR? She asked. Bauer clicked to a grainy overhead image. We're getting FMV from a medium-altitude bird, but only in windows. We can't loiter forever. We're not in open desert. We'll supplement with handhelds once we're on the ground. So we will lose the picture once we go inside, she said. Yes. That, more than anything, settled her decision. If they lost ISR inside the structure, and if the target kept using civilians as armor, the only way to protect the assault team was to have someone already in the urban canopy with angles pre-scouted. From a long standoff outside the city, she would just be a spectator. Commander, Elena said, keeping her tone formal, unhurried. For this ROE to be realistic, Overwatch needs to be in the town, not outside. Rooftop, line of sight into that hotel and its approaches. Dahl's head snapped toward her. You want to sit in Varan before we hit it? That's exposure. It's also the only way to see if he puts a child between himself and your men, she said. Your helmet cams will see it too late. Leone tapped a pen on the table. Local patrols will notice a foreigner on the roofs. I blend better than you, she said simply. Shorter profile, civilian jacket. There was a beat. Bauer weighed it, gaze moving between the map and her. He understood the real dilemma. If he put her forward and something went wrong, a civilian injured, a compromised hide, the diplomats would say he'd taken an unnecessary risk with a female allied officer. If he didn't put her forward and the team suffered because no one had eyes, that failure would be his. What's your contingency if you're burned? He asked. Pre-planned exfil to Coastal Alley, link up with your van element. Suppressed secondary. I can stay dark unless fired upon. Dahl shook his head. Sir, with this ROE, the safest is keeping the sniper on the perimeter. We can call shots in. You won't see what I can see from inside. Elena cut in, not rudely but with precision. And if he uses a child, I need to be able to adjust position, not be stuck 600 meters out. Silence. Rain on the window. Bauer finally said, All right, provisional urban overwatch. You'll go in with a local fixer before H-hour, set on a high roof. He lifted the remote, turned to the others. That means her shot is going to be decisive. You will treat it as such. Elena wrote down his words. Not because she would forget, but because men believed things more when they were written. The projector went dark. Bauer looked at her. "You still have to pass our range tonight, Captain." "I planned on it," she said. Because now her position wasn't just about pride. It was about making the ROE workable when a man with a hostage decided to hide behind a child, and being close enough to stop him. The Sicilian night had cooled, but the wind off the fields hadn't settled. It slid across the base in uneven breaths, lifting loose sand along the lane and rattling the range flags. Sodium lights spilled an amber wash over the shooting berms, turning the targets at distance into pale, rectangular ghosts. Elena knelt by the table where the armorer had laid out her Mk-13 Mod 7, the same rifle she'd arrived with, now tagged and cleared. She checked the suppressor, ran a fingertip along the bipod lugs, and opened the bolt to make sure the chamber was clean. Familiar rituals slowed the pulse. Behind her, voices. Dahl, Leone, a couple of the other operators, all in range headsets pushed up on their foreheads. Bauer stood a little apart, arms folded, watchful but not hovering. "Wind's tricky tonight," Leone said in Italian-accented English. "Good luck, Captain." She didn't look up. "Luck is for people who don't read Mirage." Dahl snorted, amused despite himself. She carried the rifle to the firing line. At 800 meters, the steel silhouette was just visible under the lights, past the closer paper targets. A shot timer sat on a folding table. This wasn't a NATO qualification card. This was their own standard, tailored to men who breached doors for a living. Fast, accurate, repeatable. Bauer stepped closer. 3 rounds, 800, suppressed, he said. "You'll have wind. Timer starts on my mark." "Any particular position?" Elena asked, already knowing the answer. "Prone, supported. How you'll shoot in Varan." She went down behind the rifle, body in line, toes pointed out. She clipped the sling, adjusted the bipod until it dug into the packed dirt, and brought her cheek to the stock. The world narrowed to the optic and the greenish tint of the range lamps. She rolled the magnification, found the plate, noted the shimmer of the air halfway down range. Wind right to left, not constant. She heard Dahl murmur, "Watch, she's going to try something fancy." She considered it. A speed drill, a snap to a smaller target, something cinematic that would make them shut up. But fancy shots were what people remembered when you failed later. What she needed here was trust. "Shooter ready?" Bauer asked. "Ready?" "Stand by, Mark," the timer chirped. Elena inhaled, exhaled half, let the reticle float to the right of center to account for the wind. Trigger press straight back. Surprise break. The suppressed report was a low cough, more felt than heard. A half-second later, a faint, satisfying clang drifted back from 800 meters. She ran the bolt smoothly, cheek welded, eyes never leaving the target. Wind eased. She saw it in the grass, slightly less hold. Second shot. Cough, pause, clang. Behind her, someone said, "Shit." Third shot was the only one with real pressure. 2 hits could be called luck. 3, under time, under varying wind, meant she knew what she was doing. She checked the timer and her peripheral vision, still green. She watched the mirage. Wind kicked up again, stronger. She shifted her aim a hair more into it. Third shot. Cough. A longer beat then. Clang. She lifted her head. Bauer checked the timer, then looked downrange through the spotting scope. 3 for 3. Within time. Dahl took the scope from him, as if the glass might reveal a secret. After a moment, he lowered it. "Grouping's tight," he admitted. Not showy. It wasn't supposed to be showy, Elena said, rolling to a seated position and safing the rifle. It was supposed to be reliable. Leone grinned, hands raised in surrender. Okay, Capitano. You can sit at the big table. The wind gusted again, cooler now. Elena felt the tension in her shoulders ease, but only slightly. Passing their range meant her voice would carry weight in the urban plan. It didn't erase the bias, but it removed their best excuse to sideline her. Bauer stepped close enough that only she could hear. This confirms it, he said. You're in the forward overwatch. We'll get you the ISR feeds first thing in the morning. Thank you, sir. He nodded toward the darkness beyond the berms, toward an imagined Adriatic town full of broken roofs. Make that shot in Veron. It won't be on a lit piece of steel. I know, she said, gathering her rifle. That's why I wanted to be closer. The ops room was cool and dim, the only light coming from the cluster of monitors showing the Adriatic coast. Somewhere over Varon, a drone traced lazy racetracks in the morning haze, feeding back full-motion video, courtyards, laundry lines, mopeds nosing through alleys. The smell of coffee and electronics mixed into a scent Elena had come to associate with pre-mission hours. She stood with arms folded, eyes on the main screen. On it, the derelict hotel occupied the center of the frame, its roof patched with mismatched tiles. Two smaller residential buildings flanked it. Time code ran along the bottom in Zulu. Every few seconds, the sensor operator nudged the camera to keep up with a moving figure. Target 10 o'clock, the young analyst said, Italian accent tucked under practiced English. He tapped the screen. Black jacket, gray trousers. There he was, Marek Sova. Medium height, dark hair, moving with the casual arrogance of someone who believed the town belonged to him. He crossed a narrow courtyard toward a parked sedan, and from the left edge of the frame, a small figure darted in. A girl this time, maybe 7, hair in a messy plait. She ran to him, latched onto his side. He didn't flinch, didn't shove her away. He simply adjusted his path so that the child stayed between him and the street. Elena felt that telltale tightening in her gut. Once was coincidence. Twice was pattern. Freeze it there, please, she said. The analyst glanced back at Bauer, who stood near the doorway listening, and at Dahl, who was pretending to read a logistics sheet. Bauer nodded. The feed froze, the green crosshairs hovering over the child's head instead of Sova's chest. Dahl frowned. Kids are everywhere in those towns. Doesn't mean he's using them. Run it back 30 seconds, Elena said, tone even. The footage rewound. This time they watched Sova emerge from the apartment door. He paused, looked right toward the street. Then the girl ran in. Only then did he move, always with a living buffer. Again, she said. The analyst replayed a different clip from yesterday. Sova stepping out of a van, a boy of 8 pushed gently ahead of him like a shield. Elena pointed with a capped pen. He doesn't move exposed, she said. He times his exits with nearby miners. He's done it at least twice in 2 days. Probably more we didn't catch. Leone, leaning back in his chair, said, Or he likes kids. This is not liking kids, Elena said. This is habit. A man who works in hostages understands leverage. He knows a foreign assault force with cameras rolling will not shoot through a child. That made the room quiet. The analyst, eager but nervous, said, If we report that up, ma'am, ROE will tighten further. They might extend standoff to 3 meters or make all shots conditional on visual clearance from inside. Which was exactly the problem. If higher headquarters saw HVT uses children, someone in a suit would decide the best way to avoid a scandal was to make shooting nearly impossible. And then, when Sova pressed a boy to his chest on the day of the assault, the team would have to fight a fully alerted hostage-taker at bad angles. She weighed it. Tell everyone now and let the bureaucracy solve it, or handle it inside the team. Run live again, she said. I've seen enough. The feed resumed. Varen went back to breathing. People carried groceries. A dog chased nothing. The hotel sat like a damaged tooth above it all. When the analysts drifted back to their desks, she moved toward Bauer, who had stayed near the door. He was watching her, as if waiting to see whether she'd make this public. She kept her voice low. Sir, he's doing it deliberately. I know, Bauer said. I saw it yesterday. Thought it might be chance. It's not, she said. If we declare it to Rome, they'll tighten. ROE. We won't get a shot unless we have him alone in a room with no windows. That won't happen. So, what are you proposing? Keep it inside the assault group, she said. Brief the shooters that he's using kids. Let me get forward so I can pick angles where he can't. If a child's in the frame, I'll call it. If your men are in extremis, I'll still shoot. But don't give this to people who only see it on paper. Bauer studied her. He understood the political layer better than his men. This is you asking for authority without oversight, he said, not accusing, just defining. This is me asking to keep the op possible, she countered. He's counting on us to be watched. A moment's silence. Then Bauer nodded. All right, it stays in the room. I'll tell Dahl and the breacher team. You get your forward hide. From across the ops floor, Dahl called. Sir, we need to send the updated civilian pattern to HQ. Bauer raised his voice. Send them the traffic counts and prayer times. That's all. Elena felt a sliver of relief. Not victory, this wasn't the kind of mission that offered those, but alignment. Bauer trusted her right enough to keep it close. It meant when she was on that roof in Varon and saw a girl's arm in the scope, her call would matter. Outside, beyond the windows, Sicily was brightening. Somewhere across the sea, in a town that didn't know it was about to become a battlefield. Marek Sova walked with children at his side because he believed they were armor. She would have to prove him wrong. The barracks wing they'd given her was quiet by mid-afternoon. Most of the SEALs out rehearsing vehicle drills or confirming gear. Elena sat at the small metal desk in her room, laptop open, boots off, trying to rest her legs before night movement. Outside, she could hear a forklift and the distant whine of a jet, familiar bass noises that usually calmed her. The email subject line did the opposite. Sub J, Roe Incident Review, Pristina Sector, 20XX from Elto Kol, Gintaras Jurkusanato, Int 2, Elena Markova. Her stomach tightened, she clicked. The message was bland in the way bureaucratic threats always were. The Kosovo file, an engagement in the outskirts of Pristina years ago, had been flagged during routine cross-theater ROE harmonization. They were re-interviewing involved personnel. Could she confirm availability for a short call within the next 72 hours? Please acknowledge. She didn't have 72 hours. In less than 24, she'd be on a roof over a hostile European port, and the incident they were reopening was exactly the kind that could make a politically nervous commander say, "We'll use you next time." She scrolled to the attached PDF, her own after-action report. She remembered writing it, jaw clenched, wanting to tell the truth without handing her career to the lawyers. The essentials of a civilian structure, movement in the window behind him, shot taken to protect the patrol, round grazed a non-combatant troll, round grazed a non-combatant. Mission objective met. Command regretted the collateral. She sat back, rubbing the bridge of her nose. The timing was bad. Worse, the parallels. Kosovo had been an urban environment with civilians too close. Varon would be the same, except now everyone already expected her to navigate kids in the frame. If this email surfaced later and Bauer heard about it from someone else, he would reasonably ask why she'd stayed silent. A knock sounded on the doorframe. She closed the laptop halfway, not fast enough to look casual. Yes? Bauer stood there in duty uniform, sleeves rolled. You've got a minute? Of course, sir. He stepped in, glanced at the desk by reflex. He didn't read the screen, but he registered that she'd been working. We just got confirmation on the weather over Varon. It's going to be wet, slick roofs, reduced visibility. Your choice of hide just got harder. I can adapt, she said. Then, before she could overthink it, Sir, there's something else. His brows rose, patient. Go on. She opened the laptop again and turned it toward herself, not toward him. I received a notice from NATO Legal. An old ROE incident from Kosovo is being re-reviewed. No wrongdoing was found at the time, but there was minor collateral. From the hallway came footsteps, voices. Dahl passed by, caught the last two words, minor collateral. And his gaze flicked in, sharp. He didn't stop, but Elena knew he'd heard enough to start building a story in his head. Bauer's eyes didn't leave hers. Civilian? Yes. Graze, non-fatal. The shot protected a patrol, she said. But it was noted. I want you aware in case some desk officer tries to say I'm not suitable for close ROE. He leaned a hip on the dresser, arms folded. Why are they reopening it? She gave him the most honest answer that wasn't career suicide. Because we're getting stricter. Because somewhere a colonel wants all urban engagements to look clean on paper. Because I'm forward on a politically sensitive op this week and they noticed my name. He exhaled through his nose, a tired, knowing sound. I hate when they do that. So do I, she said. But I'm not hiding it. You're trusting me with a shot around civilians. You should know I've done it before, and I've carried it. He watched her for a long moment, as if weighing not the facts, but the way she presented them. No defensiveness, no dramatics. Did you make the right call back then? He asked. Yes, she said, and didn't hesitate. Given what I saw, yes. Would I like to have had a cleaner angle? Also yes. Something unclenched in his face. That's the answer I wanted. Will this pull me from Lion Ferry? She asked. Not if I tell them I need you, Bauer said. I'll note it in my log that you self-reported. That buys you trust. If they call, I'll say we're already aware and we judge the risk acceptable. Relief didn't wash over her. It wasn't that dramatic, but a line of tension eased between her shoulders. Thank you. He straightened. Just don't give me a second incident to defend in the same week. I don't plan to. When he left, Dahl was at the end of the corridor, pretending to check a wallboard. His eyes slid to her door, then away. She knew he'd ask around, try to confirm what minor collateral meant. Fine. Let him. Bauer knew the real version now. If the op turned ugly and she had to make another impossible shot, the commander would understand what it cost her and that she'd done it before, not out of recklessness, but because sometimes, in cities full of bystanders, the clean option didn't exist. Varon looked even more cramped on the 3D terrain model than it had on the drone feed. The Italian cartographer had done his best, elevations, roof heights, alley widths, but centuries-old Mediterranean towns never quite fit onto tidy NATO plastic. Buildings leaned into each other. Roofs stepped up and down like broken teeth. Elena stood over the table with Bauer, Dahl, and Leon. A red block marked the derelict hotel. Two smaller blue blocks flanked it, probable relocations. A thin green line curled from the waterfront up through the maze, the planned route for their local fixer to bring her in ahead of time. Bauer tapped the shoreline. Boat team inserts here outside the marina, no eyes? Ground vans will stage south, mix with local traffic. You, Captain, go in at H-45 with the fixer. You'll be dark on comms until you're set. Dahl pointed with a pen at a building opposite the hotel, lower than the others, with a small rooftop terrace. This one, he said. It's close, has a parapet, easy egress onto neighboring roofs. Safer. Elena shook her head. It's too low. I won't see into the second-floor windows if Sova pulls his human shield tactic. And I'll lose him if he moves to the north balcony. You can stand, Dahl countered. Standing is exposure, she said. And it's less stable. I need to be prone. Leone, ever the mediator, said, There's the high one. He set his finger on a taller, more damaged structure kitty corner to the hotel. You get a clean look into the courtyard and an angle on the western stairwell. Yes, Elena said. That's the one I want. Dahl grimaced. That roof is half collapsed. Our source said it's not been repaired since the last storm. You go up there and the tile gives way. You're broken on the floor 2 minutes before we hit. I can load spread, she said. Use a mat. Stay near the supporting wall. The vantage is better. Exfil, Bauer asked, calm, weighing. She traced with her finger. Down the interior stairwell, out the rear door, into the alley. If I'm burned, I take this ladder across to the adjacent building and meet your van team here. She tapped the green circle where the civilian vans would idle, engines running, pretending to be delivery. That stairwell is narrow, Dahl said. If they chase you, you're stuck. It's narrow for them, too. This was the dilemma. She could take Dahl's safer, lower roof, keep an easy escape, and accept blind spots that might hide a child pressed to Sova's chest. Or she could take the high, damaged roof, expose herself, and see everything that mattered. She had argued to be forward precisely so she could make those shots. Giving that up now would make her earlier fight pointless. Bauer watched her. You're confident you can get onto that roof without drawing attention? The fixer will take me in under a rain cape, she said. Locals are used to people going up to adjust antennas. If I move during prayer broadcast or during the morning market noise, I'll be masked. Leon nodded. That tracks. Varen is loud in the mornings. Bauer glanced at the weatherboard on the wall. Rain icon over the coast. It'll be wet. Tiles will be slick. I'll tether, Elena said. Anchor to the chimney. I'll take the risk. Dahl let out a breath, somewhere between concern and annoyance. This is ambitious, sir. It's necessary, Elena corrected, meeting his eyes. You wanted to know I could shoot. I can. Now I need the position that lets me do it without putting your men inside a room with a panicking man and a child. That reframing landed. Even Dahl couldn't argue with protecting his entry team. Bauer made the call. All right. High roof, damaged side. You go in H-45 with the fixer. You stay dark unless you see Sova or a new armed element. If you're compromised before H hour, you abort to the vans and we adjust. Copy, Elena said. He added, ROE stands. PID, no firing if non-combatants within 2 meters unless my men are in extremis. You'll have to make that judgment call yourself. You good with that? She heard the echo of the Kosovo email in the back of her head, the reminder that perfect choices didn't exist in cities. I'm good with it, she said. That's why I need the cleanest angle. Bauer nodded once, decisive. Then that's the plan. As they broke from the table, Dahl muttered to Leon, not quietly enough. If that roof collapses, we're going to have to fish her out. Elena slung her notebook under her arm. Then let's hope it doesn't, she said, without looking back. Because from up there, I can keep him from killing anyone we care about. Varon at dusk looked almost innocent. From the back of the battered Fiat that ferried her in, Elena watched the town fold into evening, laundry fluttering between buildings, a scooter buzzing past, terrace lights winking on. The Adriatic pushed a damp breeze up the streets, carrying salt and frying oil. Anyone not staring at line-of-sight diagrams would think it was a normal coastal night. She wore a dark civilian rain jacket over her plate, hood up. The rifle case had been disguised as a long electrician's tool bag. Beside her, the fixer, Gianni, mid-40s, local, eyes always moving, drove like he'd done this route forever. 2 minutes, he said in Italian. We park, then walk. Capito, she replied, accent clipped but functional. He gave her a sideways look, measuring. Up there you must be quiet. Some roofs are, how do you say, sentimental? Fragile, she supplied. Fragile, he agreed, like old men. They left the car in a narrow lane crowded with others. No one glanced at them. Everyone was inside, starting dinner, watching TV. Good. Noise and routines covered intrusion better than darkness. They walked uphill, taking the path she traced on the 3D model, past a peeling church, around a corner where the cobbles were broken. Rain began, not the hard storm yet, but a fine mist that made stones slick. Overhead, the rooftops rose in staggered layers, satellite dishes and old chimneys making jagged skylines. At the target block, Gianni stopped beside a wooden door and produced a key. The owner thinks I fixed the aerial, he murmured. She is at her sister's. Anyone else home? He shook his head. Inside, the stairwell was narrow, plaster damp from earlier rain. Elena went first now, testing steps, the tool bag close to her body. At the top, a hatch led to the roof. Gianni eased it back inch by inch so it wouldn't scrape. Cold evening air rushed in. Voices drifted from nearby terraces. Someone laughing, a radio playing a ballad, a TV on too loud through open shutters. This was the layer of life she always forgot to show in after-action reports, the part that made the word collateral feel obscene. She crawled onto the roof. It was as the model promised, and as Dahl had feared. Half of it patched, half of it sagging. Tiles were dark with moisture, some cracked. The supporting wall on the north side was sound, though, and from there, she saw what she'd come for. The derelict hotel across the narrow street, slightly lower than her, its windows dark, its roof cluttered with junk. She lay prone along the good wall. Gianni passed the tool bag. She opened it, assembled the MK13 fast but careful, keeping the silhouette low. Suppressor threaded on, bipod out, optic checked. Then she clipped a short tether to the chimney stack. If a tile gave, she'd have at least 1 point of salvation. Below in the street, 2 uniformed local police walked by, talking, no hurry. If she'd spoken on comms right, then, if her accent had carried, they could have looked up. She felt the tug of the dilemma. She'd seen at least one unknown male on the adjacent roof when they climbed. Maybe a homeowner, maybe a lookout. The safe move was to key her mic, Whisper to the assault element still offshore. Let them update their picture. Instead, she stayed dark. She touched her earpiece, listening only. The task force net was busy but distant. Boats checking in, vans still at staging. They weren't inside yet. They didn't need her voice to tell them about a random man hanging laundry. She turned to Gianni, spoke under her breath. Una persona sul tetto accanto. Non voglio rumore. He nodded, eyes wide, and slipped back to the hatch. A minute later, she heard him on the neighboring terrace, chatting with someone, playing the part of the friendly fixer who'd come to adjust an antenna. Voices lowered, door shut. The problem went away without a single radio call. This was why she'd wanted a local. Elena returned to the scope. Through it, the hotel became intimate. Cracked plaster, a rusted gutter, a doorway to the top floor that could vomit out an armed man. She dialed magnification, swept left to right, memorizing distances and angles, the alley where the seals would emerge, the balcony Sova liked, the blind spot under the cornice that she couldn't quite see. She logged it mentally. If he stood just there with a child, she'd need to shift a meter right. Rain increased, ticking softly on the tiles. She blinked it from her lashes. Laser jock designator stayed off. No reason to paint anything and risk being seen. Movement flickered at the edge of her vision. Roof, 2 buildings over from the hotel, slightly lower than hers. Not a homeowner. A man in dark clothing, moving with purpose, carrying something long and wrapped. He took a knee behind a low wall. Her pulse kicked. She slid the reticle to him, zoomed. Rifle. Local pattern. Maybe a hunting piece repurposed, maybe something better. He positioned where he'd have a view into the street the assault element would use. Counter-sniper. She almost keyed up. Iron Wolf sees secondary shooter. It was on the tip of her tongue, but comms discipline mattered more before H-hour than after. If she spoke now, the chatter would spike. Officers would start asking for confirmation, and someone might scan rooftops. Instead, she took a still picture with her optics recorder, tagged the time in her head, and whispered, just loud enough for the net to log without carrying outside the headset. Overwatch set. One possible armed observer east rooftop. Will update on go. Then she settled behind the rifle, alone above a foreign town, listening to rain and evening voices, waiting for the moment when everything would stop being ordinary. The rain settled into a steady curtain, fine enough not to ruin visibility, but enough to bead on the optic. Elena wiped the lens with a corner of her glove, rolled back in behind the MK-13, and found the man again. East rooftop, 2 buildings off the hotel. He'd shifted slightly, settling deeper behind his low wall. His rifle was braced, not lounging. He wasn't watching the hotel. He was watching the street leading up to it. That made him relevant. She magnified, used the reticle to mill his height against the parapet. Roughly 1.75 meters, half his body exposed when he leaned. She ran the quick math in her head. Distance just over 210 meters, slightly downward angle, wind pushing right to left off the sea. An easy shot on paper. But paper didn't have ROE. She listened to the net. Boat team calling position. Van element reporting they were at the southern approach. Engines still on. Bauer on command frequency, calm, unhurried. No one was talking about rooftop shooters because no one but her could see him. She keyed her mic, kept her voice low. Overwatch to actual. Actual, Bauer replied almost immediately. Go. Have eyes on armed male, east rooftop, 2 buildings off target hotel. Weapon out, watching your ingress route. Not in current target deck. Silence for a second as he digested it. Can you confirm hostile? He's in firing position with line of sight to your team. Civilian roofs don't stage like that, Elena said. If I leave him, he can engage you as you cross the narrow. Dahl cut in on the net, voice tighter than usual. Overwatch, we don't have him identified as Sova's security. We start popping unknowns and Rome will... Elena didn't let it drift into policy. Chief, if he fires first, you're already hit. I have a clean shot now. No civilians in frame. That was the dilemma, laid bare on open comms. Let him live and hope he was just a nervous homeowner with a gun, or classify him now as a threat and remove him, on audio Rome could later review. Bauer asked, any chance he's local law? Negative, she said. No uniform, no partner, no radio, he's hiding himself. Wind nudged the muzzle. She adjusted a hair. The man moved again, rolling his shoulder, the way shooters did when they were getting comfortable for a delayed trigger. Iron Wolf, Bauer said, and his tone changed. He was committing. Call him. She understood. He wanted her to make the judgment explicit, one they could all point to later. Armed observer, East Rooftop, is an immediate threat to assault route, she said clearly. Request engagement. A half beat. Approved, Bauer said. Engage immediate threat. The words hit her with the same weight they always did. Not a suggestion, a transfer of responsibility. If she hit him, she'd saved the team. If she hit him and it turned out he was a cousin with an old rifle, she'd be explaining it at Sigonella for days. She settled deeper, stock snug to her cheek, bipod feet biting into damp tile, crosshairs on the exposed upper chest, center mass, not head. The rain and the possibility of a flinch argued for margin. She let the reticle sit slightly upwind, compensating for the Adriatic's push. Exhale. The rifle coughed, suppressed. Through the glass, she saw the impact knock him backward and out of the sight line. No splatter, no theatrics, just a body gone from a dangerous place. Threat down, she said. East Rooftop clear. Copy, threat down, Bauer said, no triumph, just acceptance. All elements, continue. On another net, she heard Dahl mutter. She gamed it, but there was no real anger now, more resignation. She'd forced them to name him, which made it legal, which made it defendable. Elena shifted immediately back to the hotel. She couldn't assume the man had been alone. She swept windows, balconies, the stairwell entrance on the roof. Just rain and broken concrete. This was the version of the job no one outside the community understood. The hardest shots were rarely the far ones. They were the ones you took a minute before anyone else realized why it was necessary. Below, the first vans rolled into position. Headlights off, silhouettes moving. In her ear, Bauer said, "Assault. Stand by to dismount." Varen's sounds changed. Doors closed, voices lowered. The town seemed to hold its breath. Then, from the lower street, the first sharp crack of gunfire. Closer, unsuppressed, from ground level. The assault had begun, and now every missed threat would cost blood. The first breach came as a flat, contained thump that rolled up through the narrow streets. Charge on a reinforced door. From her roof, Elena saw the flash inside the target block and the dark shapes of the assault element flowing in behind it, slick with rain, rifles high. They moved well. Small unit choreography she'd watched 100 times. But they were at the wrong entrance. She knew it instantly because the door they hit opened into the left side residence, not the hotel shell. A woman in a headscarf appeared in a window 2 floors up, startled, clutching a child. Civilians. Exactly what she'd tried to keep this op from drowning in. Actual Overwatch, she said, eyes glued to her scope. You're in the left residence. HVT not visual. Copy, Bauer replied, voice clipped. In the background, she heard Italian. Someone yelling, confused. Assault, clear, and shift. Below, Dahl's team started doing the hard thing, pushing through innocent people without hurting them. That took seconds they didn't have. She swept right, toward the hotel. Movement, there, a shadow cutting across an interior window, narrow shoulders, fast. Sova. He was exploiting the delay exactly as she'd predicted, slipping out of the residential side and toward the hotel proper. She tracked him through glass, through a torn curtain, then lost him behind the concrete lip of a balcony. Her angle from the high roof gave her superiority, but the hotel's cornice hid the lower hallway. If he stayed low and tight to the wall with a child, she couldn't see him. Overwatch to assault. HVT moving toward hotel structure, ground level, she called. Assault copies, Dahl grunted. We're with civilians. Stand by. Through her optic, she saw it. A door on the hotel side eased open, just a sliver. A small form, child-sized, darted in first. Then a male shoulder followed, pressed right to the kid's back as they moved deeper. She had him. She could put a round through that flimsy interior wall and probably hit him. But probably in this town could mean a dead 9-year-old and a week of investigations. Her finger settled along the trigger guard instead of inside it. Rain patted on her hood, louder now. She breathed through the frustration. If she fired, she would be breaking ROE without the in extremis justification. The team wasn't under fire in that exact second. They were delayed, not dying. This was the kind of nuance headquarters never understood when they reviewed footage later. They only saw sniper shot, child present. Overwatch, we need that door, Dahl snapped over net. Negative shot, Elena said immediately. Child in frame, no clean angle, silence, then a muttered curse from someone below. So they did it loud. Dahl's element spilled back onto the street, hugged the wall, and crossed the narrow gap to the hotel. One of them kicked low, another covered high. A flashbang went in. White bloom she saw even from the roof. Shouts, metal on concrete. Inside, it got messy. She heard staccato gunfire, short bursts, disciplined. Someone called, "Hallway! Hallway!" An Italian voice wailed and was dragged aside. This was what her held shot had cost them. 30, 40 extra seconds of fighting in tight spaces with panicking civilians. But no civilian dropped from a sniper round. That mattered. She shifted position a meter to the right, finding a better slice into the hotel stairwell. Through the window, she caught a glimpse of Sova again, higher now. He was running up, taking the interior stairs, dragging the same child. He was going for the roof. Actual Overwatch. HVT moving rooftop. Same child with him. Copy, Bauer said. Assault, pursue to roof. Overwatch, maintain eyes. Wilco. She wanted to shoot him on the stairs. She really did. But the child was jammed against him in a way that made even a precision shooter hesitate. And the walls were plaster and brick, unpredictable for a through shot. She refused to gamble with a round she couldn't fully predict. So she let him go. Below, the team thundered upward, boots on old stone. The op had lost its clean edge. Varan had become what most cities became under pressure. Wet, loud, full of people in the wrong place. Elena reset her bipod, wiped her optic again. If Sova was going to the roof, to the highest clear space in the block, that meant one thing. In a few minutes, she'd have the shot she had argued so hard to be here for. And this time she knew he would put the child in front of him. The fight inside the hotel bled into the net. Heavy breathing, boots on stairs, someone calling "clear left" in a strained voice. Through her scope, Elena saw flashes of movement at the upper windows as the seals climbed. Sova had a head start, but not much. Then a new voice cut across the command channel, louder, cleaner than the rain-smeared tactical audio. "This is Watchtower for Lion Ferry Elements," it said in formal English. "We are observing non-combatants in proximity. Confirm you are able to pause and reassess. Over." Elena's jaw tightened. SAT link. Somebody in Sicily, maybe further, had eyes on the helmet feed and didn't like what they saw. Bauer answered from somewhere on the street below, voice low but edged. "Watchtower, this is actual. Negative on pause. Assault is engaged inside structure with HVT maneuvering. We cannot freeze in stairwells." There was a half-second of digital silence as the delay caught up. Rain pattered on Elena's hood, louder now, the wind shifting. She kept scanning the roof access of the hotel, waiting for Sova to appear with the child. Not yet. "Actual Watchtower," the remote voice said again, more insistent. "ROE states no engagement with non-combatants inside 2 meters unless friendly forces ins extremis. We are seeing, repeat, seeing civilians in immediate proximity. Recommend you hold." Elena keyed to the command circuit before anyone else could. "Watchtower Overwatch," she said, keeping her tone professional. "Be advised, the HVT has used miners repeatedly as movement cover. If we hold now, he will reach the roof and establish a more dangerous position. Ground element will be at higher risk." A beat. Then, a different voice, older, maybe a staff officer, joined. "Overwatch, say again confirmation of HVT using miners. That has not been passed to us." Of course it hadn't. They'd kept it inside the team to avoid exactly this. Bauer cut in, decisive. "Watchtower, this is actual. I have that confirmation from Forward Overwatch. We are continuing. This is a tactical requirement." "Actual, we cannot authorize." "You don't have to," Bauer said, and the steel in his Bavarian accent came through. "We are in contact." That phrase, "in contact," was the shield. Once a unit said it, the men on the ground owned the moment, not the people watching screens. Elena felt an unexpected warmth toward him. He could have thrown her under the bus, said, "It's the sniper's judgment." Instead, he took the burden. She added, reinforcing his decision, "Overwatch affirms. Roof access likely. Maintaining eyes." The SAT voice backed off a fraction, but not completely. "Actual acknowledged. We will need full recording for AAR." "You'll have it," Bauer said. Then, to the assault net, his tone changed back to tactical calm. "Dahl, push up. HVT is heading for the top. Keep collateral behind you if possible." From her vantage, Elena saw the hotel door to the roof jolt. Someone on the inside testing it. Rain was coming down harder now, darkening the stucco, making the tiles slick. This was about to look exactly like the cold open she would live forever. She adjusted a centimeter to the right to account for her earlier blind spot. The rooftop where Sova would emerge was slightly lower than hers, but exposed to the street and, if he chose the wrong corner, to her rifle. Below, a woman in the street pointed up, shouting in Italian. Civilians were starting to realize there was a gunfight above their heads. That was what the SAT watchers saw and panicked over. Civilians in frame, special operators with guns, a female allied sniper on a roof. Optics, in every sense. "Elena," Bauer said on the private, tighter channel he'd opened with her earlier in Sigonella. He used her name, not her call sign. "We are committed. You see him, you call it." "Copy," she said. It was a small exchange, but it locked them together. If HQ came back tomorrow asking why they hadn't aborted when told, they would find a commander and a sniper in agreement, not a divided team. Wind shifted again, this time a little stronger off the sea, blowing rain across the rooftop. Door. Perfect conditions for a misstep. On the main net, Watchtower was still talking, softer now. Actual, we are raising this to the next level. Continue to report. Roger, Bauer said, but his attention had already left them. Assault, you're almost on the roof. Expect wet surface. Overwatch has eyes. Elena's grip on the rifle tightened. The political voices could argue all they wanted from dry rooms in Sicily. Up here, in Verone, the reality was about to step through a door with a child in front of him. Rain blurred the world into streaks. From Elena's rooftop, it was like looking through smeared glass. The hotel across the gap, a wet, yellow-gray shape, every window reflecting light from somewhere else. The wind drove the water sideways, just enough to tick against her optic. She blinked, wiped the lens again, rolled the thermal overlay on. For a moment, the hotel interior became ghosts, warm figures moving through cooler masonry. But the storm played tricks with IR. Water cooled surfaces fast, and open windows let in cold air that washed over people as they moved. The image pulsed, faded, came back. Overwatch, Assault 1 at second floor landing. Dahl's voice came through, breathless but controlled. We have 2 civilians secured, moving up. Copy, Assault, Elena said. She shifted her position, finding the narrow angle she'd marked during planning, just a sliver into the central stairwell. HVT was last seen moving higher. Be advised, visibility degraded from my side. On the command circuit, Watchtower was quieter now, listening. That made every word she said double-edged. It had to help the men inside and still sound like she was inside ROE. She scanned the roof access door again. Still closed. Then movement, 3rd floor, window with half the shutters blown off. A man in a dark jacket crossed fast. Height, build, cadence. Sova. She panned with him, but he was inside deeper rooms now, out of sight. Another heat signature, smaller, followed a beat later. Elena actual, Bauer said. You got him? Affirm. 3rd floor, south side, moving toward roof stairs. Small heat source following. Small, Bauer asked, already knowing. Child-sized. A low curse from Dahl on the assault net. She could try it. The shot would be just over 180 meters, slightly downward, through a broken window into a moving target dragging a smaller body. But the rain on the lens, the irregular cooling on the interior walls, and Sova's erratic path made it a dirty shot. If she pulled the trigger now, it wouldn't be the clean, surgical footage HQ dreamed of. It would be something they'd freeze frame later and ask, why did she shoot when visibility was compromised? Overwatch, can you engage? Bauer asked, keeping it professional. She let herself really look. The window was recessed, the man moving between load-bearing columns, the child appearing and disappearing at hip level. ROE echoed in her head. No engagement if non-combatants within 2 meters unless assault element in extremis. Right now, no one was dying in front of her scope. They were just behind. Negative, she said. Degraded PID, I can guide you. Copy, Bauer said immediately, no disappointment in his tone. He trusted her call. Elena, this is Assault 1, Dahl said, radio crackling as he climbed. We're blind up here. You gotta talk us in. I have him center of building, she said. He's pulling toward your roof access. Expect him to try and exit upward to get line of sight on the street. He has a child with him. I say again, child with him. God damn it, Leona muttered over the net. She watched the thermal flicker again. Sova climbing. The small blob dragged or pushed. He was doing exactly what she'd told Bauer in the ops room, using a miner as passive armor when pressure came. "Assault! Go firm on the landing before roof," she said. "Don't blow through and expose on the wet surface. He might be waiting." "Roger," Dahl said. She heard him yelling off radio at his men, boots thudding. "We hold before roof." Wind gusted. The hotel door on the roof shivered, then, in perfect sync with the weather, swung open. There he was. Sova burst onto the roof, rain lashing his face. One arm locked around a boy's chest, dragging him as a shield. The child's legs slipped on the wet concrete. Sova half lifted him, making sure the small body stayed between the street and himself. From Elena's angle, it was almost a taunt. "You said no shots with civilians. Now what?" She pulled him into her scope, crosshairs on the only part of him that wasn't behind the boy. Shoulder, part of neck. It was a shot she could make, but the margin was thin. One flinch from the child, and her bullet would be a headline. Behind Sova, the roof had no other cover. Just junk, a water tank, and the broken parapet. He'd chosen to fight or bargain from up here. He'd chosen exposure because he believed she wouldn't shoot. "Elena," Bauer said, voice tighter now, "we're 10 seconds from that door." She could engage and clear the way, break ROE by arguing in extremis because the team was about to step into a man with a human shield. Or she could hold and let them do a hard, wet rooftop takedown against someone who already knew their rules. She swallowed. "I have him," she said. "Holding for cleaner separation. Approach with caution." "Copy," Bauer said. "Assault, watch your muzzles, child in front." Rain thickened, drumming on both roofs now. Sova yanked the boy closer, turning 3/4 to present the child fully to the street, fully to her. He thought he'd made himself bulletproof. All he'd really done was set the stage for the shot she would take in the next chapter. Rain hammered the tiles now, hard enough that it drowned the softer noises from the street. Elena flattened herself along the good section of roof, bipod braced, tether snug, cheek pressed to the stock. Through the optic, the hotel roof across from her was a wet, gray stage lit by a single jaundiced lamp from a stairwell. Sova stood in the center of it, boy clutched tight in front of him. The child's hair was plastered to his head, eyes wide, bare feet slipping on the slick concrete. Sova dragged him half a step left, making sure the small torso stayed between his own and the street, between his own and her. He looked straight toward her building. Not at her, he couldn't see her, but at the direction a smart man would expect a shooter. He was right about the direction. He was wrong about the rule. In her ear, Dahl shouted, "On the door! On the door!" Boots banged on the last flight inside the hotel. They were seconds away. If they burst out, guns up, onto a wet rooftop with a man holding a child as a shield, any shot would be messy, close, and all over the helmet cams. "Overwatch, can you take it?" Bauer asked, tight, rain hissing on his mic too. She measured the shot. 200 meters, near level because her building was only slightly higher. Wind quartering right to left, not strong, but the gusts came in pulses. Target partly occluded by a moving, panicking miner. Her own roof had soft tiles. One bad shift, and her muzzle would wander. ROE ran through her head like a cold checklist. No engagement with non-combatant inside 2 meters unless friendly forces in extremis. Were they? Yes. Because in about 3 seconds, 3 of Bauer's men were going to appear in that doorway into a man with a gun and a human shield. That was extremis, even if the bullets hadn't started yet. She let the scope settle over Sova's right shoulder, the side partially exposed past the boy's ribs. If she put the round there, the energy would dump into him and away from the child. But the boy kept shifting, frightened, making micro-movements that narrowed her lane. "Assault! Hold inside!" Bauer snapped. "Sniper working!" "Make it fast," Dahl hissed. Elena exhaled halfway, slowing everything. This was where bad memories tried to intrude. Pristina, the window, the civilian behind the target, but she pushed it down. Different roof, different country, same math. She watched the rain for half a second more. There, between gusts, an instant of steadier fall. That was her window. "Shot," she said, warning the net. She applied a micro-lead, not forward for motion but lateral, off the boy's line, onto the edge of Sova's exposed shoulder, compensating for the push of the Adriatic breeze. Trigger press, straight back. The Mk-13 barked, a deep, suppressed cough swallowed by the storm. Through the glass, she saw the round hit exactly where she'd told it to go. Sova's upper arm, shoulder line. The impact spun him backward, away from the boy, the way a hard shove might. The child, no longer pinned, lurched sideways and dropped to a knee, crying. Sova's gun arm flailed wide, fingers losing control. "Move!" Bauer roared. The hotel roof door burst open and the assault element poured out, wet, fast, rifles on, with Sova separated from the boy by the force of her shot. They had lanes. Two men closed. One scooped the child and pulled him low. Another drove Sova to the slick concrete with a knee and a shout in English. Control, not rage. These were pros performing for an unseen audience. Target down, Dahl said, breathing hard. Child secure. Elena let out the rest of her breath, not quite a sigh. Her trigger hand trembled once. She shifted it to the stock to hide it, even though no one could see her. That was the shot she'd argued to be here for, and she'd taken it knowing a staff officer could still freeze-frame the footage and ask questions. Bauer came back on the net, voice pitched lower, for her. "Good shot, Iron Wolf." "Copy," she said. "Hotel rooftop secure from my side." She watched as the team bound Sova, checked the child, signaled down into the stairwell. Rain kept falling, washing the scene clean. Then automatic fire crackled from a street to the east, closer than before, sharper. Not the nervous single shots from locals. This was someone with a better weapon, answering the noise on the roof. "Actual, this is Van 2, taking sporadic fire near Exfil Point," a driver called, panic just under control. So it wasn't over. Not yet. Elena rolled off the rifle, checked her remaining rounds and swung her scope toward the sound. If they wanted to get the boy and the hostage out, she'd have to open that route. Extraction under fire was next. From her rooftop, Elena saw the exfil begin to fray. The first van pulled into the narrow lane below the hotel, engine loud in the wet street, back doors already open. A SEAL hustled the terrified boy toward it, wrapped in a rain jacket. Another operator followed with the EU hostage, older, pale, wrists zip-tied in front, blinking in the storm like he couldn't believe he was outside again. Then fire snapped from the east corner. Not warning shots, aimed. Muzzle flashes winked from a balcony down the block, then from a parked car where two men had taken cover. Locals, hired guns, maybe friends of Sova, didn't matter. Their rounds slapped the van's side panel and chipped plaster off the walls. "Actual, Van 2 under fire," the driver shouted. "Request cover." "Overwatch has it," Elena said, already swinging the Mk-13. The balcony shooter first. Range was short for a rifle like hers, just over 150 meters, But the angle was awkward and the rain was sideways. She found his head and shoulder silhouette through the optic and sent a single suppressed round. He disappeared backward, weapon clattering. "Balcony east neutralized," she called. But the men by the car were smarter. They used the engine block, popping up to fire short, panicked bursts toward the van doors. One round punched through the rear window, showering glass. The rescued boy screamed. "Elena, we need that lane clear now," Bauer snapped. He was somewhere below, out of her sightline, managing humans and chaos. "We're loading. Working it." She adjusted, breathing steady despite the adrenaline spike. Car shooter 1, she caught a sliver of arm, enough, shot. He went down. Shooter 2 ducked, then reappeared from the rear, trying to drag his friend. She put a round into the pavement at his feet, forcing him to break contact. Her mag was getting light. She popped the bolt, did a mental count. Not empty yet. "Overwatch? Status?" Dahl asked, voice tight from exertion. He was on the roof still, securing Sova's body and making sure no one forgot the original objective. "Holding lane," she said. "Multiple threats east suppressed. You're good to move." The first van lurched away, tires skidding on wet stone. The second rolled up to take its place. Gunfire flared again, this time from farther south. Someone had realized the foreigners were leaving and wanted to take a shot at the prize. This was the second edge of her dilemma. She could start collapsing her position now, while the street was mostly under control, and meet the vans at the link-up as planned. Or she could stay on the high roof and keep the lane honest until the very last man was clear, risking being the only foreigner still on a Sicilian roof when anger spread. She stayed. "Overwatch will remain in perch until last vehicle," she said. "Elena, you'll be cut off," Bauer warned. "I can make the alley. Stay on mission." There was a beat, then grudging respect. "Copy." Fresh movement. 2 men at a window half a block down, shouldering an old AK pattern. Elena tagged the first with a fast shot, center chest. The second jerked back out of sight. Below she heard Dahl on the net. Different tone now, less challenge, more inclusion. "Snipers buying us time. Move, move." Sniper. Not the captain, not support. He'd seen her keep the lane open when every instinct should have told her to leave. She fired again, this time at a man who tried to sprint across the street with a rifle. He folded, skidding on the wet stones. Her bolt ran dry at the same time. She dropped her head, swapped mags from the slim bandolier she'd brought. She hadn't expected to fight this long. Wet fingers, but trained. Mag seated, bolt forward. She keyed her mic. "Overwatch, 1 mag remaining. Winchester after that." "Understood," Bauer said. "Last elements moving." She checked the street, team members peeling back, van doors slamming. The child was inside, the hostage too. Good. That was the heart of the op. Now she could think about herself. "Elena, time to exfil," Bauer said. "We won't hold this forever." "Braking," she said. She collapsed the bipod, slung the MK-13, unclipped her tether. Rain made everything slicker than during rehearsals. She moved to the roof hatch Gianni had shown her, staying low. A shout went up from a nearby balcony, in Italian, angry. Someone had seen the foreign woman on the roof with the long gun. Incoming rounds cracked, closer than before. Plaster kicked up near the chimney. She ducked, heart pounding. No more time. She sprinted across the fragile tiles. One gave. It didn't fully collapse, but it dropped under her boot, throwing her off balance. She twisted to save the rifle, slammed her hip and thigh into the edge of the supporting wall. Pain shot up her side, white and immediate. "Overwatch! You okay?" Dahl barked. "Minor injury," she hissed through clenched teeth. "Continuing exfil." She dragged herself the last meter to the hatch, shoved it open, and dropped into the stairwell just as another burst chewed the roof where she'd been. The interior smelled of damp plaster and old cooking oil, safe for the moment. Outside, she could hear engines revving, the vans pushing for the edge of town. She limped down the stairs, every step sending a dull thud through her side, rifle hugged to her chest. Pain was fine. Pain meant she was still here. Next would be the part she hated more than getting shot at, explaining to officers in clean uniforms why she'd taken a rooftop shot with a child in frame. But for now, the team was out, the boy was alive, and the man who'd thought children made him invulnerable lay on the roof in the rain. Back at Sigonella, everything was too bright. Fluorescent lights, white walls, the smell of coffee that had sat too long. No rain, no salt air, no rooftops. Just the antiseptic world, where gunfights became PowerPoint. Elena sat at the long conference table in clean uniform, hair pulled back, a dull ache blooming over her hip where the tile had given way. On the screens at the front of the room, the op waited in paused frames. Rooftop in Varon, a woman's startled face from the wrong door breach, the rainy hotel top where Marek Sova had held a boy in front of him. A naval legal officer, American, neat, with a folder of printed ROE, sat beside the operations chief. A liaison from the EU mission was present too, expression carefully neutral. Bauer stood against the wall, arms folded, civilian jacket over his tack gear. He hadn't even changed fully. Dahl and Leon sat farther down, tired, clean, very much operators pulled into a room they disliked. The ops chief hit play. The wrong door, the relocation, her calm voice over the net. Then they jumped forward, syncing her optic feed with the helmet cam from Dahl's team as they hit the roof door. There it was, Sova on the roof, boy in front, rain hammering down, her crosshair settled. The shot. Sova spun away. The boy dropped. The seals surged. The EU liaison actually exhaled in relief. The legal officer paused the video there. "So," he said, turning to Elena, "walk us through your decision at 2014-37Z. She could have said the easy thing. I had a clean shot. Or, the boy was clear. That was the story they wanted, something that aligned neatly with the line in the ROE document in front of him. Instead, she said, Assault element was about to exit to the roof and encounter a hostage taker using a child as a shield. Under the in extremis clause, I judged we were there. I took the shot to create separation." The legal officer made a small note. "You were confident of your aim?" "I was confident enough," she said. "Rain, unstable cover, partial occlusion. It was not a textbook shot. It was a necessary one." Ops chief cleared his throat. "We can frame it as sniper observed safe separation at moment of trigger press." I turned to him. "It wasn't safe. It was acceptable under the circumstances." Silence. People weren't used to hearing that in formal rooms. Bauer pushed off the wall. "She's right," he said. "We were committed inside a hostile structure. Watchtower was trying to pause us. If she'd waited for safe, you'd have video of my men wrestling a man with a gun and a child on a wet roof. That would have been worse optics, worse risk." The EU liaison nodded slowly. "Our officer is alive. The child is alive. The man is not. This is acceptable." The legal officer looked between them. "I appreciate the candor," he said. "But you understand, Captain, that language like not safe gives reviewers room to question." Yes, Elena said. But if you write this as a clean engagement, the next time an Overwatch says he has a child in front, someone will tell her, wait until it's perfect like in Lion Fairy. It won't be perfect. It wasn't perfect. From down the table, Dahl spoke up for the first time. She saved us time on that roof, he said, voice rough. We came out expecting to fight him. He was already down, and the kid was free. That's the part I care about. The ops chief glanced at him, surprised at the support. Chief, you were concerned about preemptive fires before the mission. I was, Dahl said. She proved it was a good thing she was there. That landed harder than any line in the AAR. The legal officer adjusted his papers. All right, here is what I propose. We note that the assault element was about to be an extremis. We describe the attacker's use of a minor as human shield as a tactic previously observed in ISR. He nodded toward Elena, acknowledging her earlier intel. And we record that the sniper made a single, proportionate, and discriminating shot. Elena could live with that. I know it wasn't lying. It was smoothing. But she still said, include that rain and rooftop condition degraded visibility. The ops chief frowned. Why? Because if you don't, some staff officer will claim she should have done it from farther away, cleaner, drier. Bauer answered for her. We put context in now. We don't fight it later. The EU liaison smiled faintly. You two have done this before. Bauer gave a modest shrug. We've been debriefed before. The legal officer typed. Very well. Degraded conditions. Time sensitive. Child present. Assault imminent. As the room relaxed a fraction, Bauer leaned toward Elena. You may get a call from their ROE branch, he murmured. They'll want to confirm what you told me about Kosovo versus this. I'll tell them the same thing, she said. And I'll confirm it, he said. She looked at him, grateful without making it sentimental. This was the outcome she'd chosen when she refused the polished lie. A harder debrief, but a truer record. The next woman who asked to go forward with a rifle would have Lion Fairy to point at. When the meeting broke, the ops chief stopped her at the door. Captain Markova, he said, there's already talk of keeping you on this rotation, a permanent billet with the task group. We'll formalize it if you're interested. She paused, hand on the frame. Her hip ached. Her eyes felt gritty from too little sleep. A permanent billet meant more rooftops, more nights like Varon, more rooms like this. Thank you, she said. I'll consider. Because she would, but it had to be on her terms. The storm that had pounded Varon never reached Sigonella. 2 days later, the sky over the base was clear, Sicilian blue, the kind that belonged over vineyards, not over UAV hangars and concrete revetments. Elena sat on a bench outside the barracks, where the late morning sun could warm the bruised line along her hip. She wore PT gear, hair loose, a cup of coffee cooling beside her. On her lap lay the MK-13, field stripped and laid out on a towel, receiver, bolt, suppressor, bipod, clean, oiled, waiting. Her phone buzzed, a Lithuanian number. She let it go to voicemail. Home would have to wait an hour. She picked up the bolt, ran a cloth along it with practiced motions. She liked this part, silent, methodical, everything under her hands. Rifles didn't ask why she'd shot. They just needed care. Footsteps on gravel. Bauer. He stopped a few paces away, hands in his pockets, civilian clothes making him look younger. You really don't take a day off, he said. She glanced up. If I let carbon sit, it gets stubborn. That's true of more than weapons. She huffed a short, amused breath. You hear about the billet? He sat beside her, leaving space. Ops chief ran it up. They want you on the roster. Not a one-off attachment. You'd be our sniper when we do this again. When? Not if, she said. When, he confirmed. There's already talk of another facilitator on the Croatian coast. These networks never stop. Her hip ached at the thought of more wet roofs, more children in the frame. My Kosovo file? Legal called, he said. I told them what we said in the debrief, that you reported it, that you made the right call in Varan. They're not going to block you. If anything, they'll use Lion Ferry to update the urban ROE language. So I helped the paperwork, she said dryly. You helped the next sniper, Bauer corrected. Maybe the next woman. She'll have your video, that matters. She thought of Vilnius, her sister's kids, her mother's apartment, evenings where no one asked her to justify a bullet. She felt alone on a foreign roof with rain in her face, hearing men she'd met a day before trust her enough to walk into a doorway. Both were belonging, in different dialects. I won't do it every day, she said finally. I won't stay here until I break. I will come when it's like Varan, when you need someone forward and everyone else is saying too complicated. Bauer nodded as if he'd expected that. We can live with that. We don't get many people who can do what you did. We get even fewer who are honest about it after. She began reassembling the rifle, bolt in, smooth, receiver into the stock. The weapon became whole again under her hands. Chief Dahl asked about you, Bauer said, half smiling. Wanted to know if you were sticking around or heading back to the Baltic. I think that was his way of saying respect. I heard him call me sniper, she said. That's enough. They sat in companionable silence. Planes taxied, ground crew shouted, somewhere someone laughed. Life on base, indifferent to one rooftop in one European town. After a moment, Bauer stood. I'll tell them you're accepting. On call, not chained to a desk. You'll get the papers this afternoon. I'll sign them, she said. He paused. You sure? She looked at the rifle, at the clean metal, at the scope that had shown her a boy's frightened eyes and a man who thought he was invulnerable. I'm sure, she said. I don't like these choices, but I'm good at them. That's hard to walk away from. Bauer gave a small, respectful nod. Iron Wolf, then. When he left, she watched him go, then picked up the suppressor and threaded it on, precise turns until it seated. She wiped away the last streak of oil. She could have hung the rifle up, sent it back to Vilnius, told people she was finished. Instead, she put it back together, because some people belonged on roofs in the rain, holding a line no one else wanted. What she carried from Varan wasn't just the shot, it was the knowledge that when the moment came, and a child was forced between a man and a team, she hadn't looked away. She closed the rifle case, ready again when it mattered.